I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water. Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Hispanic Speak Out on Spectrum Cable. We come to you every Tuesday evening at 9:30, and I am your host, Sandra Rivera, and also joining me is my co-host, Danny Ramos.
How are you, folks? Glad to be here. You know, I'm in and out, and I'm glad to be back on the air to discuss some issues.
Yeah, and there are a lot of issues too, and especially now with the Kavanaugh hearings that are going on with the appointment to the Supreme Court. That not only brings out the issues that have been in the news lately, but the whole rape culture surrounding it, the Me Too movement. We've got things going on with Bill Cosby, so it's this new, this big development about the relationships between men and women and how our roles are treated in society. So we've got the Kavanaugh hearings, as you already know. Brett Kavanaugh has been tapped to take over the open seat in the Supreme Court, tapped by Donald Trump. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that some allegations have surfaced by a woman who claims to have been sexually assaulted by him back when they were in high school, right? In high school. And everything that comes along with that. He's obviously adamantly denied those allegations. There's testimony, there are hearings that are being conducted. I'm sure this has kind of taken a 180-degree turn from what was expected. So what are your thoughts on that, this late disclosure? I mean, we're talking about how many years? What is that, 40?
40 years.
Something like
40
that,
years.
yeah.
Well, you know, I think that politics has reached a new low, and it's going lower and lower and lower. And obviously what's happening with the Trump administration is he is now appointing from 1 to 2 to possibly 3 Supreme Court judges, which will determine how conservative the court will be for the next 40 years. So people on the other side are absolutely desperate to sabotage conservatives from getting in. And they will do absolutely anything they can in order to make that happen. So if they can taint the hearings to a point where it scares some Republicans or some liberal Republicans from supporting Kavanaugh, then he will not. But then Trump will appoint another guy that's just as conservative or more conservative. So, you know, the whole idea is the basic idea of this whole debacle is that when Trump came into office, he said he was going to appoint conservative Supreme Court judges, and it just so happens that they're all retiring right now. The majority are retiring. So Trump, of all people, is getting to pick Supreme Court judges, which will determine the destiny of the court and the destiny of how conservative those interpretations will be, those legal interpretations will be for decades to come.
Well, and that's true, but now it's getting clouded, and not to say that it shouldn't be clouded. I don't know whether these allegations are true or not, but now the issues are getting a lot murkier because you're bringing in that element of women's rights, and is this the kind of person that we want on the Supreme Court that's not respected, and it becomes a debate about, well, after a certain amount of time, is it no longer valid, or should we still hold people accountable for their actions?
A person has to be proven guilty. There is no way this person can be proven guilty of something that happened 40 years ago based upon one person's interpretation or hearsay. We're living in a time where people will lie, and they will lie in order to get to their end, to be able to influence an outcome. There is no question about that. They'll lie and they'll steal. Politics has become the dirtiest business on the planet because people no longer care about integrity. They don't care about whether you lie or not in order to achieve a goal. The idea is to get rid of Kavanaugh. Now, if you got to lie to do it, you lie to do it. They had a guy eating dinner in a restaurant. Cruz was eating dinner in a restaurant, and a bunch of people surrounded his table and started to scream at him and his wife. So they couldn't eat dinner, so they had to get up and leave. They left the restaurant. So this is the dirty tactics. They're just super dirty tactics. When you don't have anything of substance that you can hang your hat on, you do anything you can. You invent, you lie, you scream, you do whatever you can do in order to create a diffusion away from this guy being appointed. That's what's going on. I don't see how they're going to prove that this guy did something 40 years ago in high school.
Right.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Right, but I think what happens is it starts creating a conversation, and we were talking about this a little while ago. This culture that's occurring between men and women, and it's not just in politics. Obviously, it's not just in politics, and while we can all agree that there are shady dealings that go on in politics, that there may be lies, that there may be some truth. Who knows where it's going to fall. But I think what it's starting to bring to the forefront is this idea of how women should behave, how men should behave, and if you haven't heard about it, there was a incident in Wisconsin where a mother, she had a 17-year-old daughter who apparently lost him late over the summer, and as a result of that, she got a lot of attention from the boys at school who started groping her, touching her without her permission. She sought the help of the principal, who advised her that the boys are just being boys, they're just playing around, don't take it so seriously. Mom got involved. Principal told her, maybe she's not being forceful enough, telling what she doesn't like. So the daughter took it upon herself and wrote on a t-shirt, "Boys are not allowed to touch me." Well, now that girl is facing expulsion from that principal, who states that the t-shirt was a form of sexual harassment because it implied that boys are animals. So it's this culture that seems to be, that we can read about now more on the internet, of girls being treated as if their concerns or their worries are not as important, that that boys are just going to be boys, that this is what guys do, we just have to learn how to accept that and deal with that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the principal's a little off. He's a lot off. Okay, he should have addressed the issue right away, identify who is touching you, who is groping you, bring them into the office and talk to them. And that's not what he did. What he did was he kind of I don't want to deal with this, let me kind of make it try to go away. And all he's doing by that is he's making it more emphatic for people to react. You have to stop something at the very beginning. With the political situation, and this is part of the atmosphere that we're in right now, everybody's using whatever they can to get over. I just think that it's another method of political assassination that takes good and decent people out of politics. I was offered many times to get into politics, and I said no, because I don't want to subject myself or subject my family to anything that has to do with that. Because you're going to get attacked, and you get attacked dirty, and inventive, especially now with the internet. With the internet, anybody can accuse anybody of anything.
You're right.
And there's no recourse.
So is there any room then for legitimate accusations? For people who have committed offenses that we should be aware of? Is there any room for people, for women, specifically, because that's who generally tends to be the accuser, for them to come forward with these things? Or is it always just a smear tactic?
The most important thing that a man or a woman, because men have been sexually harassed, is to report it immediately. Do not wait 40 years to report something. I mean, all of a sudden, this guy's running for Supreme Court. When he was a circuit court judge, right? Well, that didn't come up then, right? It didn't come up. So why is it coming up now? It's coming up now because this seat will determine the destiny of the United States of America.
Right.
So all of a sudden, let's dig up somebody. There's no proof at all in that. So the most important thing is, if you have a situation, report it immediately. If you have a rape, go to the hospital, get a rape kit. You have to report immediately. You cannot put it off.
Okay, but I think that's a little short-sighted too, to say you have to report it immediately, because there is, we can't get into the minds of a rape victim or a sexual assault victim. There may be a number of reasons, and we've heard about them on the news. There are a number of reasons why they may not come forward, whether they've been told by somebody, you're going to ruin this person's life, or you're going to subject yourself to this, or the embarrassment that they feel that they're going to be under the microscope. So there's a number of reasons why somebody may not feel comfortable coming forward right away. And that's not to say that I necessarily take a position on the woman who has made the accusation in Kavanaugh. Yes, I think it's a very unfortunate set of circumstances that if this did happen, if it did occur, she's not helping her case by coming forward so late in the game.
And she stated in an article that she was quoted that the recollection was foggy, that she didn't remember exactly, and then she met with her attorney and things were put in more of a perspective.
Right.
Okay, so I see a political agenda there. As don't expect to report something 2, 3, 4 years later, let alone 40, and expect to have any kind of proof or any kind of documentation. Now, if there's a pattern where you can have multiple women coming up and saying, yes, he did this to me, yes, he did this to me, and those women come from different walks of life and don't know each other directly, then you have a pattern of assault.
Well, when we're seeing that with Bill Cosby.
We saw it with Bill Cosby.
Where there was,
and in that particular case, you can say, look at all of these women, they're coming from all over the place, and they're saying this guy has done it to them, and I would say, yeah, he's guilty of doing it because it's got a variety of witnesses over time.
But then, so that goes to say that had it been one accuser, because they were all late reporters, all the women did late reporting. Had it been one accuser, it may not have been as credible as having multiple.
Absolutely. Because where do you get the proof 10 years later?
Well, where do 20 women get the proof?
Somebody can come in here right now and accuse you of stealing something 15 years ago. Does that mean that you're guilty? That means you're going to go to jail?
No, of course not. There is an innocent until proven guilty.
And do the same thing to me. So we're all vulnerable by attacks by people who have agendas. The higher you go on the ladder, the more visible you are, the more vulnerable you are to attack by people who don't like you or don't like your political agenda, who don't like your business agenda, and they can attack you publicly in order to reduce your credibility in the community or in the nation. So this has become a new tactic, and it's supported by the internet because anybody can now create momentum for their accusations in the internet.
Right. Yeah. And I think it has an adverse effect on both sides. So you stated that point.
Just to close this, I know a lady who was going out with a guy, and she's no longer going out with a guy, and he put on the internet that she was going out with many men at the same time. And he put it on the internet. She didn't do it. She said, I'm not doing that. You know, that was his way of getting back at her for breaking off.
Sure.
So he accused her publicly, and she cannot sue him. She can,
Right. Yeah, there is an ugly side in it, but I think it has adverse effects for both sides. So if there is a legitimate accusation, then you have to face that onslaught of, well, I mean, how can we really trust you? You didn't report late. So I think there are cons and negative consequences for both sides of the coin.
Yep. Okay, this is Sandra and Danny, and we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. And if you want to email us and give us your opinions on all of this subject, you can send an email to info@rrma.us. We'll be right back.
Esto es amor de verdad, nadie lo puede dudar.
Step up to craft beer. Taino Light Lager has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean-style flavor. Boricua Craft Ale, full-bodied flavor for the true beer drinker. Stop drinking beer water.
Mundo gira pegado a ti.
Taino Craft Light Lager and Boricua Strong Craft Ale. Feel the rhythm and come up to craft beer.
I am for the child who's had 7 addresses in a single year because she's in foster care, because her father abused her, and her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.
Hola Florida! Introducing Boricua Beer and Taino Light Beer. Boricua and Taino Light are crafted beers that are rich in flavors and brewed right here in Florida. Taino beer has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean flavor style when enjoyed chilled. Boricua beer is a craft ale with full body flavor that is a beer drinker's beer. Boricua and Taino Light Beers. Enjoy responsibly.
Just like the rest of the country, and those people are kind of disregarding the beers their parents grew up with, and they want local beers. They want things that cater a little bit more to their taste, a little bit higher quality, and they're willing to pay for it.
Sure. And so where locally can we find this?
There's a couple Publix around town in some of the bigger Hispanic pockets of town. Sedano's, Bravo's, there's a bunch of 7-Elevens. You can find them almost at all the ABC wine and spirits. They have a pretty big craft beer selection.
Excellent. And so I know this isn't the only brewery or brewer looking to target this market. Who else is popping up nationally?
Yeah, there's some companies out of like Southern California, like Ohana Brewing. There's some other ones. What's really interesting about Boricua is I really haven't found many others that target Hispanics specifically, and you already see that done in the mass beer market with Corona,
exactly.
Dos Equis things. Mexico's a pretty big beer market, but in terms of Americans, they've really kept it general so far, either localities like Orlando Brewing or Fat Tire, just a generic term out of Colorado.
Excellent. And I just want to know, what has the reception been? If it's only been launched for a few months, what's the kind of feedback you're getting on this?
It's doing pretty well in some restaurants around town, especially some like Puerto Rican restaurants that they really only offer, some of the big international beers, Heineken and things like that. They bring in a local beer. It says craft brew. It's got a local tie to it, and people want to try it, especially tourists from out of town. They want to, see what the local flavor is, and so far it's been good.
Excellent. So we have a local entrepreneur, a local brewer here, targeting a very specific market within a larger market. So we'll just have to see how Boricua goes from here. But if we're seeing all these temperatures, I myself might crack one this weekend.
I think you should, Caitlin. Cheers to that. What a terrific idea.
Cheers.
All right.
Thanks for watching this video. You can watch Orlando News Now every weekday on OrlandoSentinel.com. We go live at noon. See you then.
Welcome back to the second segment of Speak Out TV. I am Diana Joseph, your host for this evening. And tonight I'd like to talk to you about the talk of Florida right now, which is our upcoming votes. It is something, as the chair of housing of the NAACP, that I felt very passionate about when coming on this program and accepting the position to be one of the hosts. I wanted to be able to have an outlet where I can, in simple terms, help our community understand the processes and things that we can do as a community to see changes in our community. One thing that I have enjoyed about living in Florida and coming from a Caribbean background myself is the fact that we are such a diverse people of all different cultures, of all different races. And I don't think Florida is ever going to change. I think we're going to continue to be a state full of different cultures and races that add to just what Florida is. So as we come to these elections, we need to stand back as a community and understand fully what the purpose of the elections are. I am, and I do have a large Facebook following. I follow social media, and I read on a daily basis outlets of people and their gripes in regards to things that are happening daily in the media, things that are happening in our political offices. But what saddens me is that as a community, we don't understand the value of our voices. And the value of our voices really are heard on the day of voting. Voting is the day that we can choose to make a difference. I'm not here representing the opinions of the NAACP, and I'm not here presenting any particular party or promoting any particular party. What I am here today is to explain the importance of you voting. Here we have just recently experienced the large, and we're still experiencing, I believe, the last I checked, the lotto craze that we have going on. And you can see people lining up for that chance of being that winner of that lotto ticket. But when we look overall, after this lotto is said and done, we still have issues on the table. We still have concerns bigger right now that need to be addressed. And we need to take that same energy and that same passion to make things happen in our state. I know that it is very traditional that when there's a presidential election, everyone runs to the poll because obviously they pay a little bit more attention, there's more going on in the media. But what we have to understand is that actually this time of voting is our most crucial and important time. Why is that? Because we have a constitution that basically mandates and manages how we run as a state. And we have an opportunity during this election to vote on certain amendments that will change or put in place laws that can change our Constitution to our benefits. But how do we do that if we don't get out there and vote? How do we do that if we don't let them know what we want? It is very easy to get caught up in the hype of the commercials, of the character flaws of each candidate. It actually becomes a very negative outlet of how we feel as a society and how we feel as a community. But what we really have to stand back and say, are we happy where we are right now in our society? Are we happy as a culture, rich culture, diverse race of people that are trying to do exactly what we all wake up to do every morning, to pursue a career, to bring home a paycheck, to take care of our families? We actually all have the same goal. We want a better life for our family. And the only way to do that, again, is if we get out there and vote. If we take the same time that we take to stand in long lines to a concert, long lines to an event, long lines to get a lotto ticket, if we take that same passion and take it to the polls, we'll find that things can change, but only if we reach out and make those changes. Understand that if we don't make these changes during this election, what happens is these laws, this Constitution, will stay in place for another 20 years. And so it is very vital, because the decisions that we are making with these amendments are not only affecting us now, but it's going to affect our children, and some of us it's going to affect our grandchildren. So this is a vital election, and that's why there is so much talk. Also, we have to understand that the president, I think what happens too a lot in our community is we look at it as having a position with a company, and we have a manager, and then we have an owner of a company, and whatever that owner of the company wants, it goes down to the manager, and then from the manager it goes down to the workers, and things take place. Well, it doesn't work like that in politics. So a lot of people, I think, just not understanding the process and not understanding entirely how it works, thinks that, as long as we make sure that we vote for the president and we vote for the governor, then we're good. As long as we have that person that we want in office, then we're good. But actually, we're not. Because what we do need to vote on is we need to make sure that we're voting on every single office that is up right now for a vote. The reason for this is because it doesn't take one person to make a decision, but it takes several people to make a decision. And what we need to do is not listen to the commercials and get involved in the hype on social media, but we really do need to get out there and to understand what exactly the candidate position is on different topics that affect us, such as health care, such as business policies. We need to know taxes. These are things that are important to every single one of us, whether we are single, whether we are married, whether we're a family, whether we're an entrepreneur. It affects every single one of us. So what we need to do is really understand the mindset of the candidate that you are voting for. Not only the mindset, but does that mindset match your mindset? Do you know as a fact, by doing your own research, by going on the websites, by understanding what amendments they agree on, what changes they agree on, by doing your own research, is this candidate really going to be the person that benefits what you believe will promote the changes to give you a better life? And that's really what we need to continue to understand when going out to vote. So as I end this segment tonight, I do want to thank you for allowing me in your home. But I also want to remind you that it is early voting going on right now at the polls. Now understand again, early voting is the easiest way to vote. If you don't want to be on the long lines on November 6th, then stop by the polling places that you see. You'll see the signs outside, and all you need to do is go in there with a picture ID and a signature ID, and you can vote. It does not have to be in your area. It could be on your way home from work. But what's most important is get out there and vote. Do it now. The lines are shorter, the lines are quicker, and at least you won't have to look at standing in long lines. But the important thing I want to stress is please get out there and vote. Make changes in your community, not through social media, but make changes in your community by voicing your opinion on the day of voting. Thank you again for spending time with us this evening on Speak Out TV. My name again is Diana Joseph, and we'll talk to you soon. Go and vote.
Hola Florida, introducing Boricua Beer and Taino Light Beer. Boricua and Taino Light are crafted beers that are rich in flavors and brewed right here in Florida. Taino beer has a crisp, refreshing Caribbean flavor style when enjoyed chilled. Boricua beer is a craft ale with full body flavor that is a beer drinker's beer. Boricua and Taino Light Beers, enjoy responsibly.
Year because she's in foster care. Because her father abused her. And her mother? Her mother couldn't believe her. She is the child I am for. I am a volunteer child advocate. I am you.
Florida residents call toll-free 866-341-1425.